One reviewer said, and I quote Chuck Palahniuk, is that kid on the playground who dug up bugs and shoved them in girls' faces just to see them run away screaming.
Right, a vivid comparison. Derived, I assume, from reader reactions to the book we're discussing today.
You assume correctly, because today we dive headfirst into the literary equivalent of finding something sticky and unidentifiable on a public transit seat, Choke by Chuck Palahniuk.
Yes, Choke, by Chuck Palahniuk. The information I have suggests it concerns one Victor Mancini, a medical school dropout. He apparently works in a colonial history reenactment park.
Oh, the glamour. Imagine the powdered wigs and the existential dread. Probably smells like mothballs and cheap. I'll go on.
And he funds his mother's nursing home care by deliberately pretending to choke in restaurants, so patrons can save him, and then send him money out of a sense of obligation. There's also mention of sex addiction meetings.
Meetings he attends sometimes to find partners. Let's not gloss over the efficiency. It's multitasking for the morally flexible. But honestly, the whole choking scam, brilliant or just deeply, deeply weird. Reviewers couldn't seem to decide if this whole setup was genius or just, well, one called it nonsensical shit. Another just went with crap.
Indeed, the reactions appear sharply divided. Some found the style deliciously disgusting and darkly hilarious. Others felt it was trying too hard. One noted graphic sex in books doesn't bother me, but it was the unrelenting scenario after scenario that I found completely overdone and solely there for shock value. I was rolling my eyes.
Rolling their eyes, can you imagine? Reading about, and let's be clear, reviewers mention all kinds of sex acts, torrid airplane bathroom encounters, maybe even something involving red rubber butt balls, whatever those are, and the reaction is an eye roll. Not shock, not disgust, just boredom. That's almost more insulting to Palahniuk, isn't it? Like that playground kid showing off a worm and the girls just yawn.
An interesting perspective. Though others did praise what they saw as perfect social commentary beneath the surface details. But the division extends pointedly to the protagonist, Victor Mancini himself.
Ah, Victor, our choking Casanova of our colonial cosplayer, our connoisseur of questionable life choices. What did the good people think of him? Was he a misunderstood soul or just, awful?
Opinions varied. Some described him as a well-crafted character, fascinating and complex, even endearing despite his flaws. Others labeled him a one-dimensional asshole, boring, a pig, a weak loser, and, memorably, representative of juvenile placation of angsty, adolescent dickery.
Angsty, adolescent dickery. Poetry, sheer poetry. It paints a picture, doesn't it? Probably wears socks with sandals, ironically. Complains about capitalism while using his mom's credit card. You know the type. And the mommy issues mentioned apparently quite severe. Kidnappings.
The background described does involve his mother, Ida, frequently kidnapping him from foster care during his childhood. Reviewers certainly flagged the mommy issues as central, though some sympathy was expressed for his friend, Denny, consistently called an amazing friend, even if also messed up.
Denny, the loyal sidekick, every angst-ridden protagonist needs one. Probably holds Victor's hair back while he metaphorically vomits his existential pain everywhere. Or maybe literally reviewers did mention vomit, and piss, and feces delightful. But the reviewers themselves sound like characters. One apparently wrote their entire review as a letter to Charles Bukowski asking if Palahniuk was his son.
That does seem unconventional. There was also the reader who felt compelled to share, in detail, their own personal experiences choking at an Olive Garden, and a Qdoba, apparently involving steak.
Steak. See, that's commitment to the craft of reviewing. They weren't just reading about choking, they were living it. Probably thinking Victor's technique is all wrong. You need more dramatic flailing, less subtle gasping. They even concluded the book wasn't credible because their choking incidents weren't lucrative. Missed the point much. Like complaining Willy Wonka's factory violates OSHA regulations.
It does suggest a literal interpretation. Much like the reader baffled by the psychology of the scam, wondering why the saviors would feel indebted, not the other way around.
Logic. Who needs logic when you have grotesque scenarios and potential blasphemy? Did you see the mentions of Victor possibly being descended from Jesus Christ via the sacred foreskin?
Yes, that was noted as a bizarre plot element introduced by another character, Dr. Page Marshall. Alongside Victor's recurring internal question, apparently, what would Jesus now do?
What would Jesus not do? Probably wouldn't fake choke for cash, I'm guessing, or attend sex addiction meetings for hookups. or star in what one reviewer, and I am quoting directly here, called a hilarious consensual rape scene.
Right. That particular phrase, hilarious consensual rape scene, was indeed used by a reviewer to describe a specific moment they found darkly funny. It highlights the extreme nature of the humor some readers perceived, and the provocative content throughout. Reviewers consistently flagged the book as explicit, graphic, and potentially offensive regarding sex, bodily functions, and religious themes. Warnings like "not for the easily offended" were common.
Understatement of the century. It sounds less like a book and more like a dare, which brings us to the reactions. People weren't just eye-rolling, they were apparently gasping, screaming, "Holy shit! Did that just happen?" Especially at the ending. One poor soul wished they weren't in church when they finished it. Imagine the confession. "Forgive me, Father, for I finished choked during the sermon."
The ending twist was frequently cited as a complete shocker and an insane mindfuck, generating intense reactions, both positive and negative. Some loved it, found it satisfying. Others felt Palahniuk cannot end a book to save his life.
So it's a literary gamble, then. You might get a mind fuck you love, or you might just feel fucked. It's like Russian roulette with paperbacks. Okay, listeners, quick poll, based on what we've heard from these reviewers. Victor Mancini, tragic product of his messed-up childhood kidnappings, an unstable mother, or just a self-pitying asshole making bad choices. I think his mother probably critiqued his choking technique. Let us know.
While the listeners ponder that, it's worth noting that amidst the chaos, some elements were consistently praised. The dark humor, for instance.
Oh, the humor, so dark. It probably tells knock-and-knock jokes about the void, knock-knock. Who's there? Existential dread. Existential dread, who exactly?
Reviewers called it hysterical, witty, and sarcastic. The originality of the premise was also frequently highlighted. "Unlike anything I've ever read," one said.
Original, like finding a new shape of mold growing in your fridge. Technically unique, but do you want it? Though ill-conceived, some fans got downright poetic. One called the writing poetry of the most demented order.
Yes, impeccable, visceral, the man can weave sentences, were other descriptors used by admirers. There was also appreciation for thought-provoking themes: addiction, society, identity. One quote cited was, "Art never comes from happiness."
Ooh, deep. So misery is the new muse explains a lot about internet comment sections. But we got an email from Sacred Freskin fan 69 Classy.
Go on.
Sacred Freskin fan 69 writes, "Dear Heart Book Radio, loved the discussion. Clearly Victor's choking wasn't a scam, it was divine intervention practice. The saviors weren't sending money, they were making offerings. The host needs to open his third eye. What do you say to that? Ready to ascend?"
And imaginative interpretation, rooted perhaps in the book's noted exploration of religious themes, however irreverent. It certainly seems the book provokes strong viewpoints.
Strong viewpoints. It sounds like it provokes restraining orders. So, final verdict, is this thing a misunderstood masterpiece, or just literary toilet paper?
Well, the reader reactions indicate extreme polarization. Praised dark humor and originality clashing with accusations of gratuitous shock and juvenile writing. A protagonist seen as both complex and pathetic, an ending hailed as brilliant and dismissed as unsatisfying. It's inconsistent.
Inconsistent, it's a beautiful disaster, like a Jackson Pollock painting made with bodily fluids. All right, my official Heartbook Radio rating for Choke. I give it 3 out of 5 holy shit gasps at the ending, plus a bonus point for the reviewer who shared their Olive Garden choking story. Minus 2 points for making another reviewer want to punch the author over repetitive phrasing. Final score, a solid 2 out of 5 Olive Garden breadsticks of discomfort.
A unique metric. Ultimately, the commentary suggests choke is an experience, likely eliciting a strong reaction, positive or negative.
Exactly. You probably need to read Choke yourself just to figure out which side of the literary asylum you belong on. Or maybe just to understand why someone would mention red rubber but balls in a review. Link in description, you magnificent weirdos.
Right, next week.
Next week, we tackle a self-help guide allegedly dictated by a sentient houseplant. Apparently, its advice on pruning relationships is ruthless.
Ascension Houseplant. Of course, you've been listening to Heartbook Radio.
Now go out there and try not to choke. Unless you're running a scam, then, good luck with that. Choke on that, bitches.